What's going on, guys? My name is Doug. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. I'm going to be giving my final thoughts on Kanye West's Jesus is King in this video. Just a fair warning. Those of you that watched the original Jesus is King review will know that I am a Christian myself, and so the vast majority of my thoughts on this project will be coming from a Christian perspective. There will be a lot of references to Christianity and to the Christian faith and to God and the Bible and things like that in this video. And so if that's something that you don't want to watch, if that's something that you want to click away from, I totally understand. That's fine. That's why I'm giving you this warning beforehand, so that you don't end up watching the video and about halfway through you feel disappointed because you feel like you're being preached to. You know, that's not the goal here. This really is just to vent and give my thoughts on this project. So if you don't want to see that, it's totally fine. Thank you for showing interest in the video and clicking on here anyways. I really appreciate that, really appreciate the support, and I hope to see you back here, in another video sometime very soon, maybe at the live stream tomorrow. I'm planning a live stream tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow night, where I plan to answer some questions and mess around in FL Studio, just chill. It's not a certainty, it's just an idea that I'm throwing around, and we'll see what sticks. But with that being said, yeah, that was the warning. Let's get into this. So we'll talk about this album musically because that'll be the faster portion of it. I have zero qualms with this album musically. Sonically, I think it's pleasing. I get that the mixing is dusty, but that's I feel like it's paying homage to the classic gospel albums, the gospel style of the American South, predominantly black communities. They used to have this dusty sound, they used to have that style to the mixing, and so I feel like he's kind of emulating that. I think it's all very intentional, it's not accidental, and so I can't necessarily call it bad. I think that, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't necessarily. It won't work for everybody. Some people will take an issue with that. I personally don't have an issue with it at all. I like the vocal arrangements, I like the use of the choir. I think he could have used them a lot more because the choir is absolutely sensational. I think that the horn arrangements, the production overall, just musically, this album is good. Kanye West makes good music. That's no issues with the music on this thing at all. Lyrically, he chooses not to swear. He talks about Jesus and God and his faith and finding his faith, finding God, his conversion, and how he feels better and sane, and things of the like. And that's where the issues start to arise. So there are a lot of Christian people that would cast judgment and condemnation on Kanye West as soon as they heard that he had converted to Christianity based on his past, based on the music that he had released beforehand, especially that track, I Am a God. They would have just completely disregarded anything about his conversion or anything like that immediately because they cast judgment on him prematurely, and that's not right. That's what he talks about when he says, what have you been hearing from the Christians? They'll be the first ones to judge me and make me feel like nobody loves me. Yeah, they shouldn't be doing that. Anybody who truly believes that the Bible is the Word of God and they want to follow what it teaches will know that the Bible teaches us to love people and not to cast judgment on other people. And the Bible does say that when you want to judge another believer, you should discern whether their conversion is actually authentic or not based on their fruits, based on what they produce, what they say, what they do, how they behave, things like that. So that's what you want to take into consideration when you want to say, oh, I don't believe his conversion is real, or I do. What he says, what he does, and things like that after the point where he said he converted. Using anything from his past to just disregard his conversion is incorrect. It's not what the Bible teaches, and anybody that does so either doesn't know their Bible or they're just a hypocrite. They do know the Bible and they choose not to follow it. So I gave him the benefit of the doubt. I said so in the Jesus is King video. I was very happy when I heard the lyrics. I was very surprised and happy that he called out the hypocritical Christians who were judging him based on his past and things like that. I gave him the benefit of the doubt, decided to see what he was saying, how he had been behaving, what he would do, in order to discern whether his conversion was authentic or not. And one of the major things that started to cause doubt to arise in me was I saw his merch. And we'll talk more about that very soon. I feel like that's going to be the majority of this video, is just talking about the merch. But the day that Jesus is King came out, he said in an interview that he was the greatest human artist to have ever lived. And that level of arrogance and cockiness, just the size of his ego, is something that the Bible completely teaches against. You know, if you are somebody who has converted to Christianity and you want to dedicate your life to following Jesus, what the Bible calls you to is to serve, is to be humble, calls you to humility. It says that in everything that you do, give glory to God. You should never want the glory or the fame or the recognition for yourself. And so I don't believe that anybody who truly follows Christ would ever come out and say with that level of certainty or with that level of cockiness and arrogance that they are the greatest to have ever done something. You know, somebody who truly follows Christ would say that any fame that they've achieved, any success that they've gotten was given to them by God, and they would give thanks to God for it and not necessarily attribute that success to themselves and to their own merit, you know? So that was already one thing. And then I take issue with the fact that he asked God for wealth on, what track was that? Water? And again, there's nothing wrong, by the way, with asking God to make you financially stable or successful or wealthy. Nothing wrong with that at all. The issue lies with people who follow God only because they believe that he can make them wealthy, and only because they want to be rich, and they believe that following him is a path to riches. You know, the Bible teaches that the love of money is the root of all evil. The Bible teaches wealthy Christians to be generous and not to hold on to the wealth that they have, not to let it accumulate, and not to hoard it for themselves, but that they should be storing up treasures for themselves in heaven, because everything that you see on earth will come to pass anyways. And so if you are rich, if God has given you wealth, use it to bless the needy. Don't just give it to the church. Give it to the widows, give it to the orphans, give it to the people who are starving to death, the homeless, you know. Especially because back then they wouldn't even meet in temples. They would go to Jewish temples and synagogues to try to preach to Jewish people, but the church themselves used to meet in people's houses, you know, so there was no temple to be maintained. There was just the community, the people themselves. So they called them to be generous, but they also taught poor people to give thanks no matter what. The Bible calls us to be content with whatever God decides to bless us with, and to bless him and his name, and to give grace and thanks to him always, in all situations, because if we're faithful to him when he gives us a little bit, then he knows that we'll be faithful to him when he gives us a lot. And so I take issue with a Christian who has a net worth of $240 million, on the low end, by the way, because no one really knows his net worth because of the Yeezy brand. It ranges between $240 million and $1 billion. And you're married to somebody whose net worth is like $370 million, asking for more wealth. It doesn't seem like a sign or evidence of a true conversion on his part. I take issue with him saying that he charges the prices that he charges for his clothes and for the merch and for things like that because he can't let his family starve. Because like I just said, 10 years ago, he already had a classic discography. 10 years ago, he was already basically set for the rest of his life. And now he's richer than he's ever been. His family is never going to starve. He is Kanye West and he's married to Kim Kardashian. He can charge an honest and fair price for the clothes and not overprice them and still be wealthy, feed his family, and be content. But instead, he chooses to charge just dishonest prices for clothes that are not worth what they're sold for. That's not evidence of a true conversion. That's a sign of greed. That's a sign of arrogance and pride. That's a sign of dishonesty, in my opinion. And since we're talking about the pricing of clothes, we'll go into the merch, because that's what really caused me to start thinking this way. When you go onto shop.kanyewest.com to look at the Jesus is King merch, you see a sweater that says Jesus is King, and it has a dove on it, that's being sold for $170. Now, I don't believe any sweater ever made would be worth $170 unless it was literally made out of gold. There's just no way somebody could ever convince me that a sweater is worth $170. There's a sweater under that has a golden cross on it and people with halos. I'm not sure if they're different images of Jesus or the disciples or whatever. This sweater is $250. Now, the Brazilian real was worth about 25 cents the other day. So $1 would have been worth about 4 Brazilian reals. This costs 1,000 reals, the sweater. Minimum wage in Brazil is 998 reals a month. You wouldn't be able to buy this sweater with a month's salary living here in Brazil. A Christian would not do that. Somebody who truly follows Christ. Hoodies for $170. Sweatpants for $140. These are not fair prices. These are not honest prices. But that's not even the real issue. The issue is, and I'll try to put the images up on screen. There is a shirt that is black. It says Jesus is King, in awful lettering, really. It has an image of Jesus in the background wearing a crown of thorns that is being sold. And obviously it's not an image of the actual Jesus. You know, there are no images of the real life Jesus. But the problem lies in the fact that Kanye knows that people associate this image with Jesus and he's selling it. There is a shirt with Jesus wearing a crown of thorns surrounded by lightning that he is selling. There is a sweater with an ugly cross that says Jesus is King, Kanye West, in bright colors, and on both sleeves there is one a picture of Jesus crucified, and on the other sleeve a picture of Jesus arrested on his way to be crucified, and he is selling this. Shorts with that same image of Jesus arrested on his way to be crucified, and he is selling this. You cannot ever convince me that a true follower of Christ would take images of Jesus crucified and sell them. Images of Jesus wearing a crown of thorns, they would make it gimmicky by adding lightning around it and selling it. It's just not right. It's just not right. Crucifixion was a form of torture. It was a form of execution. It was one of the most gruesome, cruel ways to kill somebody back then. To this day, really. We always have these images of Jesus being crucified up high. People were crucified down low, low enough so that the dogs that were passing by on the street could gnaw on the people's feet as they died. Their lungs would fill up with blood, it would hurt every time that they breathed, and they would suffocate to death, basically. They would drown in their own blood. Their wrists and their feet were pierced with thick nails to pin them to a wooden cross, and they would just hang in public places for everybody to ridicule them and everybody to witness their suffering all day. It is not to be taken lightly, and this is an image that Kanye West is taking and saying, throw this on a sweater and I'm going to sell this image and call myself a Christian. That is not evidence of a true conversion. It is disappointing. Kanye West is commercializing his faith. He is turning being a Christian into a gimmick. It's downright offensive, right? Now, yes, Paul writes in Philippians about people who use the gospel for dishonest gain, for financial gain, and he says that whether their intentions and motivations are sincere or not, Christ is preached either way, and therefore I rejoice, and yes, I will continue to rejoice. So yes, I am glad because since this project came out, there are millions of people around the world who would never have listened to a song that talks about Jesus, and they listened to them because Kanye West made the album. I'm glad that people are listening to these messages that say that God is love and that Jesus is King and all of that. In that, I am glad. I'm very happy about that reason. But I do not believe Kanye's intentions to be sincere. I do not believe his conversion to be authentic. I think that it is offensive and it is downright dishonest and just evil almost to take these images, to take these ideals, to take these traditions and monetize them, you know, and turn your faith into a gimmick. It's so wrong on so many different levels. Like Tabby says, it leaves a bad taste in your mouth. You know, it seems so disingenuous. Now, if you're a fellow Christian and you're watching this, the Bible calls us to love Kanye, to be patient with him, to pray for him and for his family. But we are well within our rights to be very disappointed. And honestly, I'm disappointed. That's really the only word that I can use to describe how I feel about this project, about Kanye and what he's doing and how he's been behaving. It's just disappointment, really. I think it would be better for him to go back to making the music he used to make, acting out and wilding the way he used to. I feel like that would be more honest on his part. That would at least be him being true to himself. You know, here he is trying to play on people's emotions in order to make $1 off of them. It's corrupt. You know, it's just so sad to see. Those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comment section. I'll see you guys in another video very soon. Until then, stay safe, guys. Peace out.